Welcome back to Getting Geeky with Game Relief. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome for the first time to Getting Geeky with Game Relief. Now, I do need to bring some attention to something. I have recently fell in love with a new YouTube channel, or YouTube, whatever you would call it, called Game All Night by Chris Whitpan. Yeah, this is cool. It's like talk show, one of those funny later night talk shows, but it's about board games. And I was looking forward to watching one as I saw it drop tonight, but I've got to get a bunch of episodes up for you, my fans. And they did this to me. I thought it was going to be a short episode. It's an hour and stinking 19 minutes long, so I wasn't able to watch it, but it is up. This is episode 9. Definitely go back and watch these. And yeah, but anyways, if you came here for an interview, you're right. But before that, I wanted to tell you how you can get involved in getting exclusive content from Getting Geeky with Game Relief, especially if you're new. Make sure you go over and sign up for our mailing list at GameRelief@GameReliefGo.com. That's kind of like Pokemon Go, but it's GameReliefGo.com. But anyways, let's catch me and Daryl at our interview about his new game on Kickstarter.
Getting Geeky with Gamer Leaf, the podcast in which one man strives to level up his geekhood and helping you do the same, one battle at a time. Now, let's get geeky with Gamer Leaf.
The always green forest is a lush, beautiful land and home of the Dobbers. However, there is trouble in the forest. Things are starting to die without explanation. Crops of new trees and fruit fail to mature. Rot and decay fill the streams and ponds. But few in Dobberton have noticed.
Did that sound familiar to you guys? It didn't to me neither. But this is the story of Dobbers Quest for the Key, a new game that just barely launched to Kickstarter on the 16th of April. And we're lucky enough to have on the creator, the mastermind, I guess the everything behind this game on the podcast tonight, Daryl. Is that correct, Daryl? Is that how you fit into line with Dobbers Quest for the Key?
Yep, that's the everything. It's a brainchild of mine that was really inspired many years ago from my grandfather. He used to say, keep your daubers up when, you were being grumpy or something like that. And I didn't really know what that was. But when I was younger, being a fan of fantasy books and things like that, I was inspired to kind of create these characters. Then years later, I actually made a comic book, and that was the first time I put the daubers down on paper. Then I had kids, and now it's become a board game. So it's, I guess, been a lifelong development.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, so thanks for joining us on Getting Geeky with Game Relief. We really appreciate you coming on the show with us, Daryl, especially gearing up to the launch with how busy you got to be.
Well, thanks. I'm glad to be here. This is fun. You're my first audio interview, so pretty cool. I've done a couple on Twitch, but I'm glad to get to do a podcast.
Well, there you go. Yeah, that'll be good, because I don't know if you have any coming up or if I'll be able to officially say, like, depending on when I release it or not, which should be within the next week or whatnot, next couple of days here probably. But yeah, I always like to say, you heard it here first on Getting Geeky with Game Relief. So I can say that about Dobbers in relationship to podcast and whatnot.
You can.
Awesome. I always like to say that for some reason. So before we get into talking about why you're here or whatnot, let's rewind a little bit if we could. Let's rewind a little bit if we could, Daryl. But how did you don't have to go back very far, of course, unless you were born into board games. But how did you get into tabletop board games, Daryl?
Yeah, well, I was born into it. It's been a long story for that too, because honestly, it was back in middle school. My friends and I started playing Dungeons and Dragons, of course, and back then it was advanced Dungeons and Dragons. And it wasn't too long before we just went hog wild and played everything we could get our hands on. we were in love with, the basics like Risk and Monopoly, but also all the role-playing games we could get our hands on, GURPS and the Doctor Who game, which back then was weird, and lots of stuff like that. And it wasn't even too long after that before we had Transformers playing Monopoly and Dragons in Risk. So we did everything we could with games, and I've been doing it that way for 30 years since.
Well, there you go. That's awesome. So at the time of this recording or whatnot, I can't. Unfortunately, I can't let you pick Dobbers because my audience might run me out in the street and have me hung. But at the current time, do you have a current favorite board game besides Dobbers Quest for the Key?
It's hard to pick one, to be honest. My family and I do play a lot of current games. We go to Gen Con every year. We back Kickstarter. So there's always something new, and we tend to focus on that for a while. Probably the game we've played the most in the last year is Bunny Kingdom. There's just something about it. It's easy enough to play, but it's still fun and competitive. We can always just throw it out on the table and not have to plan a session like if we were going to play Scythe or something like that. We actually played Bunny Kingdom, yeah.
So, for say somebody hasn't heard about it, I know I haven't. What can you tell us about Bunny Kingdom?
Oh, Bunny Kingdom is a yellow game. It was huge at Gen Con last year. I guess it's considered a worker placement game, but you put little bunny. I'm getting an echo. You put little bunnies out on the board, and they represent like a space or a territory that you're taking over, and you're trying to collect more territory than your opponent. I just realized describing it with words is pretty abstract, but if you see it on the board, it makes sense.
Okay, yeah, that sounds pretty fun. But you guys like that?
Yeah, yeah. Hey, hold on. I'm going to try to just make one tweak to my audio, and maybe that'll keep you from having it going.
So, Bunny Kingdom, that sounds pretty cool. And you talk about family, so and you had kids or whatnot. What, if you don't mind us asking, what age range are they?
Yeah, my daughter is 6. My son is 11. My son was heavily involved in helping kind of generate some of the ideas for the board game Daubers. And they love games. I mean, if they get it honest, I suppose, but it's real fun to get to play with them.
Well, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. So, yeah, like you said, the elephant in the room, I guess, or whatnot, what have you, is you got a new game on Kickstarter currently. What can you tell us about Dobbers Quest for the Key that you're getting ready to launch at the time of this recording, Daryl?
I can tell you a lot about it. So I guess it depends on where you want to start. Do you want to talk a little bit more about kind of the story, or do you want to go into mechanics and kind of that sort of line of thinking, or?
Yeah, whatever you think's best. Let's see here. Yeah, what kind of mechanics does it employ?
Well, at its core, I suppose it's a deck building game, but it has some unique qualities to it where you're not just playing cards out of your hand each turn and then shuffling it back up and then playing another hand. Certain cards stay in play as your equipment. So you play a hero that's moving along this board that's kind of got winding paths. The idea is that the board represents the map in any kind of a high fantasy adventure. So there's these paths and different locations you have to go to. And you're, like I said, so as you're buying cards out of the adventure row, your part of those cards you're buying is equipment. So you're getting your sword and your armor and your cool items like a shield or a staff or something. And those stay in play and they add to your character's action points. And as you travel, you use the action points to move on the board. And eventually you get to a location where there's an encounter or a challenge. And you use the action points also to overcome those challenges. And it's just a number comparison system. So it's pretty simple. But so in addition to those equipment items staying in play and that being pretty unique to deck building games, probably the most unique thing is not only are you buying for your deck, but you are buying to put the encounters on the board. So there's another row that's got locations and creatures So you've got to kind of weigh this thing the entire time you're playing. Am I going to build up my character, or am I going to put out obstacles for my opponent? So there's this back and forth while you're playing, and it's super fun. Depending on who you're playing with, it can be super competitive, or it can be kind of just a fun little way to play a game. So it's kind of neat that way.
Well, that's pretty cool. Myself, I love deck builders, and you talk about the encounters or whatnot. If you were to place an encounter out on somebody, do you risk having to go through that encounter as well, I'd imagine?
Yeah, the way the path works, since both characters are trying to get to the key, so it's the quest for the key. Eventually, the path comes together, so you will have to cross certain locations as all the other players. And there's one location in particular that even in a 4-player game, all 4 players will have to go through it. So, you could put a small or more of an easy to overcome location on that for yourself, or you could try to get there first and then put a big one there so that everyone behind you has to go through it, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of strategy involved.
Okay, that's pretty cool. That's awesome. And you talk about items or whatnot. Can you also, like, if I have items that are always in play or whatnot, can those be sabotaged as well, or how does that go out?
Well, it's interesting you said sabotage. Did I send you that card or something? But yeah, no, there's a card called sabotage. And if your hero is within 2 spaces of another hero, you can play sabotage on them. And what that does is it forces them to discard one of their equipment cards and move back a space. Now, it's not destroying the card, so it ends up in their discard pile, and they could eventually get that card back. But like a typical deck builder. But it's kind of a hindrance.
Okay, interesting. So were there other deck builders that played that kind of inspired this? I know you said you got a lot of the inspiration from your grandpa, I think it was, but were there deck builders that you liked that kind of had a little bit of inspiration as well, maybe?
Yeah, definitely. We play we play both, or all 3 games are Dominion, Hero. No, my brain's shutting down. Star Realms and Ascension. We play those 3 games regularly. They just kind of in our regular rotation, and they definitely inspired kind of where this came from. It wasn't until after I created the game that I played Clank for the first time. So I don't know if you've played Clank.
No, my wife actually got it for me for Christmas, but I've yet to get it to the table. I'm big on deck building. I really like the Star Realms, and also we have Hero Realms as well as Cthulhu Realms. I think I like Cthulhu Realms the best, but the iconography is kind of a lot. There's a lot more iconography, and it's kind of hard to get into or whatnot. And unfortunately, I can't really get any of my family to come to the table with me. Although my son, during when we reviewed it or whatnot on the podcast, he did say it was turning into his favorite game, but we haven't got it to the table for a long time.
Yep, I understand. I haven't heard of Cthulhu Realms. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, it was initially made by the same people, but I think it was initially created by them, but I think somebody else has the rights right now. I forget what company it is, though.
Okay. Yeah, I wondered because it doesn't. I had seen it like on the White Wizard or White Wolf, White Wizard. I can't remember which one. Yeah, White Wizard. Yeah,
White Wizard Games.
So, yeah. What was I saying? Oh, yeah. So Clank is interesting because in that game you have a board also, and it's a deck builder. But the big difference is you're playing against the board, right? It's got the adventure built into the board. In Quest for the Key, the adventure basically is built while you're playing the game, because you and your opponents are putting those locations out with creatures, and even those creatures can have equipment if somebody puts enough effort into one particular challenge. So you could have a whole stack of cards you have to face.
Okay, and I think doing that would create a lot of replayability because it won't look the same, will that necessarily?
Yeah, no, it'd be really hard for it to look the same. Even after I've played it probably 100 times, I don't remember all the cards or the combinations. So I had one reviewer actually email me, and they're like, "This game is really tough," and they were pointing out one particular combination that I'd literally never seen yet. And I'm like, "You're right. that's a tough one. I don't know what to tell you. Don't do that.
Oh boy, it looks like you beat me to the punch. I was about to ask. I know you're probably a little bit biased or whatnot. So per se, somebody doesn't want to necessarily take your word for it. It sounds like there's some reviews out there in the wild that they might be able to look at.
Yeah, there is. Nonstop Tabletop has the most recent one, and it's a pretty good review. I'm really pleased with it. One of the things they pointed out, we were just talking about making a big stack, is that if you have a bigger game, you can have a risk style attack the leader alliance. So I thought that was kind of a fun way to put it, because yeah, you get somebody out in the lead, and all the other players could just like pile everything in one location to stop that guy. So kind of fun. But yeah, Nonstop Tabletop. Take a look at that.
Okay, cool. What other and you talk about where you can go ahead and get everything on the leading player, so you don't necessarily have to play the event anywhere where you are. You can put it anywhere on the board, I guess.
Right. Yep. You can put it anywhere on the board, and you can put it where you are. But that's something you're going to probably not something you're going to do like the first couple of times you play it. As you get used to it, then you start to discover, there's some advantages to playing this on myself. Because when you do defeat a location, you get some bonuses when that happens, but there are also consequences. So that was another thing I built into the game that I think is really unique to board games in general, is even in success, there is consequences. I think the idea for that comes from trying to emulate a journey or a quest where over time, your weapon might get wore out, or you climb this, rocky thing and it wears you out. So there's consequences. You still got to the top, right? But you got to take a break. So that's kind of built in there, and I think it adds a lot of fun. It also helps kind of keep things balanced. So if somebody is running away from it, they have to slow down because they're doing too good.
Well, that's probably kind of cool. So per se, man, you were to sit down to play Dobbers Quest for the Key, how would that look, Daryl? Wait, I mean, how would that sound? This is a podcast after all.
Right. Yeah, well, of course, we're going to set up the board. We each have our own deck, our personal deck, like you would in most deck builders.
Now, sorry, really quickly, are those curated, or does it matter, like a faction we take has a certain deck built in, or how does that work?
Right. In this set, everyone starts with the same deck. I am really looking forward to an opportunity to change that, but I didn't want to do that in this first set. And if we get far enough into stretch goals, I think I can add it to this, but then it'll kind of be as a alternate rules sort of thing. For the first game, I think it's important to ensure that the core is really strong, and I think I've done that. But I am looking forward to those kind of expansions where you've got each player or each character has its own starting deck and things like that. Should be fun.
Okay, awesome. So we both start with the same deck, and then how does it proceed from there?
Sure. Yeah, well, you will likely get one of your two starting equipment. So you're going to get 8 bottle caps. And just to clarify, I wrote the comic book in 2001, which was before Fallout came out. So they were using bottle caps as currency before the video games were. Anyway, but it was a silly kid's book at the time. So you have 8 bottle caps and a traveling kit and a wooden knife as your base starting deck. So you're probably going to get one of those equipment cards, and you'll play that. So you'll put that next to your hero, and then with, say, the wooden knife and your hero, you might be playing Gavin. He's kind of a collector, adventurer guy. That'll give you 2 action points because each one the guy has one and your equipment has one. To make your first travel on the board, it has a travel of 2. So you can use those action points to travel, and you get to the next square. So that's the extent of kind of that phase of the turn. Then you also will have your starting influence, which is what you get from the bottle caps. Gavin will have 1 influence, and then the other 4 cards in your hand will be the bottle caps. So you'll end up with 5 total influence. Cool thing about Gavin, though, is if you buy a card from the adventure row that is a equipment card, he gets a bonus influence. So with him, you would actually start the game with 6 on your first turn. If you buy an effect card, which we didn't really go over yet, but effect cards are like the standard deck building cards. They play whatever they say they do. It happens that they go in your discard. But if you buy an effect card, then he's just got his 5. So you're probably going to look at that and decide what you want to buy. But you might also say, there's this there's the stone fence. Sorry, my brain just shut down again. The stone fence card, which is kind of a medium-sized location. You can afford that on your first turn. Maybe you buy the stone fence and you put that out in front of your opponent. So that's kind of the way the first turn will go for you. And then I would probably do the same thing. Just like in most deck builders, the first 2 turns are extraordinarily predictable because everyone has the same cards. But then pretty quickly, especially that first couple cards you buy, because your deck's small, you'll get them right away. So they'll have a big influence on how the game goes right away. So.
Okay, but after a while, I will have more choices and I'll have more cards, I guess?
Yeah, definitely. So as you go, you might focus on cards that are going to cause you to have more cards in your hand. So green, there's the 4 factions, or factions is not the factions is the Star Realms term. Alliance is the Dobbers term. So the 4 alliances, and there's the Wild, which is the green cards. There's Dobberton, which is the kind of the capital city of the always green forest, but they're blue. There's the Rat Claw clan, and they're yellow cards. And then there is the Decay, which is this kind of purple, yucky looking color. And anyway, so they all kind of have their own focus. Right now it's still kind of keeping it reined in. Like I said, I want to make sure that core is solid, but I'm definitely looking forward to how wild they'll get as we expand. But right now, green is kind of your speed color. It's going to let you draw extra cards and things like that. Yellow is your brute force card. So that's the Rat Claw clan. They're going to give you cards that do extra damage or more action points, which the way they are played is mostly damage. Blue is your Dobberton. So they're your all-purpose. They're pretty versatile, but they also have a little bit of a tendency to have more influence. So there's going to be like the silver armor when it's in play. Not only does it give you action points because it's armor, which basically all the cards kind of equate to action points or not, but it also gives you influence. So it gives you like a permanent extra bottle cap to spend every turn. And then the Decay. So the Decay lets you do things like play Rot, which destroys cards. So that's got a good deck elimination, or what's the term in deck builders where you're filtering out the cards you don't need. You know what I mean?
Yeah, where you can what do you call it? Have it like not necessarily discarded, but where it goes out of your deck or whatnot. I know what you're talking about, I think.
Yeah. There's a term for it. It's just gone out of my head. But yeah, so it's the deck honing, I guess we'll call it that. Yeah, so that's kind of the way you go about it. Now, of course, just like Star Realms or any other, sometimes more cards from one alliance will come up than they would on another game. So it kind of tweaks the way your strategy goes. You can't just come into every game going, I'm going to play green, because it just won't work. That's a good thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, but as I get more cards, you said I have more choices or whatnot. I suffer from AP or analysis paralysis. So when I play this after I get the more cards, will my friends and family hate me more?
Oh, yeah, no, I don't think so. I think they'll want to play it too. It's a family friendly game. That's one of the focuses. Also, is while there's monsters and the strategy, if you choose to, can go kind of deep. I'm really conscious about the art and the text and everything like that. Not surprising parents. I don't want anybody to be like, hey, why is there a a female warrior with, her midriff showing. Like, how does that even make sense in this world? So there's nothing like that. And I think anybody could play it and have fun. The only exception might be, young kids that are learning to read, because there's a lot of text on some of the cards. And my daughter, who's 6, can play it, but sometimes it feels a little long to her. So.
Okay, cool. And you talked about the art and whatnot, and I recall you saying something about you doing everything on this project. Is that correct?
That is correct. So I am also the illustrator. So I'm the game designer, the graphic designer, the illustrator, and the marketing person, the writer, the web development guy, and probably some other things. The videographer, the photographer. I don't know. I'm just listing things now.
So you got to be pretty busy then, or do you do this full time, or what's going on with that?
I am doing it full time right now. I am an illustrator by trade, so I had an opportunity to kind of take a break between projects. So I'm working on it full time for the meantime, but I'll definitely be picking up commission work again in a couple weeks.
Wow, that's got to be pretty convenient because, yeah, I can't imagine it's got to be pretty busy running a Kickstarter and everything, and you haven't even started yet, per se.
Right. Yeah, it is. It's pretty crazy. I didn't anticipate how much time it would take, even with my schedule being flexible as it is.
Yeah, that when I started the podcast last May, almost a year now going on, coming upon us, I didn't imagine how much hard work it would be. I thought it would be fun and whatnot, but yeah, I could have never imagined how much hard work, how much I had to put into it. But I love it. But yeah, sure, it is time consuming and whatnot.
Yeah, sure. I can believe it.
For sure. So, per se, somebody's falling asleep listening to us. It wouldn't be because of you or Dobbers. It'd probably be because of me and my podcast. They get a little tired of hearing me drone on and on. It's the middle of April, and at the time of this recording, I'd already had 56 episodes out since the first of the year. So they get a little tired of hearing me drone on and on. But they're suddenly jolted awake, so they don't hit the oncoming traffic, Daryl. So now you have their full attention. Why should they take a chance on Dobbers Quest for the Key, especially with all the other great games that keep dropping on the Kickstarters?
Well, I think if you like character-driven stories, if you like art that is fun and entertaining, and if you like a game that you can play casually or play competitively, Dobbers is a really good game for that. It creates time around the table with your family or with friends, and it really does kind of hit that sweet spot of being kind of an epic, big, hardcore competitive game, and allowing you to kind of have a relaxing, hey, well, let's play some cards and look at some cool, creatures and do battle.
There you go. And like I said, and we'll go ahead and make sure we leave links in the show notes or whatnot so they can go ahead and click on it as opposed to having to type it in their phone. Sometimes our generation gets a little lazy, so we'll make sure we leave links in there so they can find the project easier. So it's running from the 16th of April until when do they have a chance to back this great game?
Yeah, it's actually going until May 18th, so it is just a little bit over a month. It's going from a Monday to a Friday, so that's where the extra days came in because it made more sense to take it all the way to that Friday. And and it's going to be easy to find. So if you just go to dobbersquest.com, that's also going to forward to the Kickstarter for a while. And we're gonna try to really fill the internet with it.
Well, yeah, that'd be good. That's awesome. Cool. And you mentioned one of the reviews. Is there other reviews that they can go ahead and take somebody else's word for it? And if so, who?
There are a few in the works. Geek Dad is working on one. Unfiltered Gamer. I thought I'd actually get that one today, but maybe I'll check with him. Board Game Brawl and the Gaming Family. They're actually another podcast, but theirs is going to come out after yours. So yeah, there you go. So there's a few of them. I don't even have my list in front of me, but there's a few that'll drop later too.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, I really love unfiltered gamer. I like the stuff Michael puts out. It's pretty good.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm looking forward to getting his.
Cool. So, yeah, we get a lot of reviewers that listen to the show sometime. How did you go about finding and selecting the reviewers that you wanted to preview your game, Daryl?
Well, I have a friend, Jess Davis, with she's the board game girl, if you've ever heard of her. So she just gave me some advice. I'm kind of new to this side of the industry. I've actually been working in the industry like as an illustrator and designer for a while, but to kind of the business side. So I'm like, hey, I don't even know what to do with this. So she said, well, here's some ones I'd recommend, and here's some others that, as you get established would be better, but let's get established first, that kind of advice. So,
Well, there you go. That's pretty cool. That's awesome. So you talk of doing this, being in there, doing some of the other stuff. What have you illustrated, if you don't mind us asking? Other games, maybe?
sure. My probably the most famous things I've worked on are True Dungeon and Dwarven Forge. I don't know if you've heard of them, but Dwarven Forge was Stefan Porcorny. I designed several of their classic resin sets. So if you're not familiar with them, they make Dungeons and Dragons terrain, or I mean, it could be any role playing game really, but they make terrains. And as a designer, I basically illustrated like what the walls would look like. And so we did several different. We did the Den of Evil and the Realm of the Ancients, and things that were trying to create kind of different environments for people to play the role-playing games on. So I did the illustrations. We sent them to a sculptor. The sculptor then sculpted them, and anyway, went on down the manufacturing line. True Dungeon is kind of funny because Dwarven Forge is for miniatures, and then True Dungeon is actually full-size, life-size role-playing environments. So for him, I've designed logos and brochures and booklets and tokens and all sorts of stuff. So for him, I'm a little bit more on the designer side. I actually designed the website if you go to truedungeon.com. So those are some that I've worked in.
Okay, that's pretty cool. That's awesome. And so you decided to make your own game. That's awesome. And it looks like, just looking at perusing through your Facebook page and whatnot, it looks like you've also, leading up to this, done some giveaways and whatnot. Am I correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been working actually with Brent Critchfield with Studio Woe and Tim Fowers with Fowers Games. They gave me a couple of games to give away just to help get the word out. And then before that, I just bought a couple and gave those away too.
Well, that's pretty cool. So what's the science behind that?
Well, I wanted to pick card games that I knew were popular and would hopefully hit the same market that I'm going to be selling to, because you know how gamers are. They're not like, I'm going to choose the best game and buy that game. It's, I'm going to choose all the games in the style I like and buy them all. So if I just get the right style, I know that those people should, if they like Gruff with Studio Woe, they're probably going to like the Dobbers because they're both kind of these whimsical monster games, right? If they like Clank and Space, they're going to like Dobbers. I mean, it's all kind of the same family. So
There we go. Yeah, and Gruff has a Kickstarter. I think I want to say my wife said they got about 5 days left at the time of this recording on their Kickstarter for their latest Gruff.
yeah, I think it's a few less, but pretty close to that. They're really close. Yep.
There you go. Yeah, so that's awesome. Yeah, so that's awesome. So now, let's see. I know you said when we were talking before, you listened to a couple of our podcasts. I don't know how far you got into each of them, but the next portion of our podcast is called Adventures in Application Acquisition, where we talk about an app, be it for a cell phone, a tablet, a computer, or even a video game. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be related to board games or Question for Keys or anything like that. It can be anything you use a lot of. Is there an app you use a lot of that we can talk about for a moment, Daryl?
Well, this was not a question I was prepared for. I am not a huge guy that hangs out on my phone a lot. So I use my phone for a lot of communication and marketing. So I use Instagram a lot. Of course, I use Facebook, Twitter. Discord is probably the one I use the most on my phone.
Okay, I know we've talked about it a couple times on the podcast, but that's okay as well. we could either talk about Discord or the Instagram app. I don't know that we've covered the Instagram app, but which one do you like better, or which one would you prefer to talk about for a moment?
Well, how about Instagram? Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's pretty simple in its concept. You're sharing an image, and you have followers, and they scroll through their people that they follow to hopefully they see your image. So, pretty simple and straightforward with that. But there's something about that format. I think maybe because I'm a visual guy, where I can kind of get stuck in scroll mode, even though I don't need to be. I'm just like scroll, 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 and I'm like, oh wait, snap out of it, Daryl. You got work to do. But it works really well, and I've got some followers, and they respond, when I post new images for the game and things like that. So I think it's a cool format.
Well, there you go. Yeah, I was using it. I don't even know how to follow these phones or whatnot. I was using it for a while, had a decent phone, and then my wife teases me that I go through them like I used to go through watches or whatnot. But so I had a decent phone, and then I don't know if it broke. Yeah, I went to bed one night. It was ready to go, and then I woke up and it wouldn't function. So I ended up having to get another phone, and it was a piece of garbage or whatnot. Like, so I really didn't have room to do Instagram anymore on my phone, so stopped doing it. But now that I've got really old model of the iPhone, I think I should probably jump back on there and get back with Instagram, because I haven't posted forever on my Facebook, well, I guess Instagram page in this sense. So yeah, I got to get up back on that or whatnot. If you own the rights to Instagram, Daryl, what would be one thing you would do to fix it or make it a better app?
I think I would probably work on kind of the algorithm where it suggests new people to follow, because there's times where I get on there and I'm like, why? I mean, maybe I browse this kind of subject at one point or another, but that's not what I'm here to do. So why does it keep showing it to me because I looked at it once? I feel like you should have to tell it I want this content before it just assumed it gave it to you.
Well, there you go. So yeah, we like to make a green podcast around here so people can come back and listen later on. So if anybody that has anything to do with development of the Instagram app is ever listening, you heard it here first on Getting Geeky with Game Relief. What Daryl will do to make it a better app, go ahead and fix that algorithm so he doesn't have to keep seeing, I don't know what it is he keeps seeing, but stuff that he just went to see once that he's not really into.
Sure, yeah, memes and stuff like that. I mean, I'm not saying they aren't funny, but I should, you know what I'm getting at. It's all right.
Yes, for sure. For sure. So there you go. You heard it here first on Getting Geeky with Game Relief, what Daryl will do to fix that. Now, we don't want to keep you all night, Daryl, but before we let you go or whatnot, mine is coming there to your hometown to stalk you. How would people go about finding out what you have going on, both with previous games or upcoming games, and especially with Dobbers? How would they go about finding out or following you and whatnot?
Sure, there are two ways. If you search for Splattered Ink, you are going to find me on the internet. I'm splatteredink.com, Splattered Ink on Twitch, Splattered Ink on Twitter, Splattered Ink on Instagram. So it's Splattered Ink. I've pretty much got that everywhere. However, I also do have DobbersQuest.com, which they just go to the same site. So if you just look for Splattered Ink or Dobbers Quest, you should be able to find me.
Okay, awesome. How did you come up with Splattered Ink? Was that just something that was not taken anywhere, or how did you come up with that?
Actually, that goes way back too. So when I first was discovering that I was into art, I enjoyed messy art. And I started calling myself Splattered Ink. I think I did Splattered Ink comics or something like that. And when I got into college and the internet boom was hitting, I searched for it and it was available. But I mean, that was about 20 years ago. So I've had that domain name for a very long time.
Oh wow, yeah, the internet's been around for a while. That's crazy. So yeah, and I forgot to ask this, but you talked about a Dobbers comic book when we first started talking. Is that available anywhere, or can they get that on the Kickstarter as well?
So that was printed in 2001, and there aren't any prints out there that I know of other than the few that I kept. So that is going to be a add-on item in the Kickstarter. I'm going to do a reprint of that. I'm really hoping that is responded to quite well, because I'd love for one of the stretch goals to include coloring it, or doing another issue or something like that, because it never really finished. The first episode, or I keep calling them episodes because that's the way I've been working lately. The first issue did have a beginning, middle, and end, but it also was intended to go on. So I would love to work on that more, but we'll let the people of Kickstarter, the community, tell me if I should.
Well, there you go. So you guys have the opportunity now to go check out the Dobbers Quest for the Key on Kickstarter, and you can check out this great game and scroll through and see the art, the wonderful art and whatnot. And also looks like you'll have a chance for the comic book, and you can help continue that as well. So when you're not playing, you can be reading about the great world.
Yeah, thanks.
No problem. Yeah, so like I said, we don't want to keep you all night, but we really appreciate you coming on, getting geeky with Game Relief with us, Daryl. We really appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you having me. It was a lot of fun. And I will definitely be listening to your podcast from now on.
Awesome. And I forgot to ask this. I know the answer, of course, but the audience may not. I know I am constantly saying how people, if they want to have their game featured on, if they want to either talk about their new game on Kickstarter or whatnot, or they want to have us featured or whatnot, or anything like that. How did you go about hearing about being able to get your game here on Kickstarter? Well, not get it on Kickstarter, but have us talk about it, and also doing the interview. How did you find out about us?
Yeah, like I said, I talked to my friend Jess at one point. She gave me a few people to talk to, and then they also, after talking to them, kind of told me who to talk to. Also, those contests I ran on Facebook attracted a bit of attention. So there's been a little bit of a snowball effect in finding people and people finding me. But a guy from the Social Gamer, he runs a website where he talks about how gaming is part of building community. So he said, "Hey, here's a few other people that do interviews and not just game reviews." And I said, "Well, I'm looking for interviews," and you were on the list.
Well, there you go. And what's his website called?
I'm a Social Gamer, I think.
I'm a Social Gamer, and that's Vaughn. I forget his last name, but Vaughn something.
Reynolds, yeah. Vaughn Reynolds, I think, yeah.
Vaughn Reynolds. Well, thanks for the shout out, Vaughn. We really appreciate it. And I don't know if you listen to the podcast or whatnot, but if you do, I didn't block you on Facebook, and I'm going to reach out to you via email or whatnot. I don't know what's going on with that, but so sorry about that. But yeah, once again, Daryl, we really appreciate you taking other people's advice and finding us and being able to get on the show. We really appreciate it, and can't wait to see this Dobbers Quest for the Key fully funded on Kickstarter, hopefully within the next couple days, if not by the, what did you say, the 18th of May?
Correct. Yep, by the 18th of May. Yep. So yeah, no, I'm hoping for a big out of the gate, explosion. Of course, everyone is, right? I mean, that's the way you do it. But I'm sort of optimistic. I'm hopeful. I believe.
For sure. Like our friend Alan Girding over at what Tuesday Night Games podcast says, even if you just have like $1 to throw at the Kickstarter, is kind of like a social media, because anybody who follows you will be able to go ahead and see such and such back this game. They don't know how much you back it for, or you can also share them if you know somebody who you don't necessarily like this kind of game, but you know somebody who might. You can go ahead and click. There's a share link on there, and you can go ahead and do that as well. So we can go ahead and help Dobbers get some attention, just like he's been trying to find other people or whatnot and doing giveaways and whatnot. Now it's your turn, audience.
Absolutely. Yeah, I will appreciate anybody who will help.
Well, there you go. Well, yeah, like I keep saying, we don't want to keep you all night, Daryl, but we really appreciate you coming on the show tonight.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. Have a good night.
No problem.
It's time for Kickstarter Corner. To begin now.
You heard it right, folks. It's time for Kickstarter Corner. And boy, do we have some lucky games. Well, are they lucky games? I don't know. You be the judge. Go ahead and make sure you're clicking all the links to find out what's in the show notes. And you can find out about the great games that we have currently on the Kickstarter Corner. We'll make sure we leave all of these in the show notes so you can go ahead and check them out and be the judge for yourself, shall we? Yes, we shall. But anyways, let's get on with it, shall we? As soon as I click all of these. Why did I not click them before? You will never know, nor will I. But anyways, we got some great ones. If you just listened to our interview, and even if you didn't, you can always go back and listen to it. But we just sat down with Jonathan not too long ago and from Games and talked about No Escape. No Escape is a competitive maze building. Take that game for 2 to 8 players. You heard me right. 2 to 8 players. So definitely check that out. And if you missed the interview, go back and listen to it because you might have the time. If you don't have the time, listen to it again later. Election night. Learn your way to the White House. Yes, sirree, Bob. Check this one out. This is a great game. It's a game night hit that teaches math, geography, and the civics of electoral college to kids. Yes, teach them how they can become the president and let them become the president of the game, I guess. It is easy to use, color-coordinated state groups. It's awesome. It's a roll. It's got a bunch of dice and whatnot, and it's like you're in the election. It's what's using Play Smart Dice. Definitely check this out. We're actually going to have Jim, the creator of it, on the Kickstarter creation episodes coming next week. So definitely watch out for that, or listen out for that, I guess I should say. And then Arena the Contest, tabletop miniatures board game. It's a fantasy tactical combat miniature tabletop for 1 to 8 player with a cooperative dungeon crawler and player versus player team competition. Definitely check this one out. They're over 1,000% funded. They got about 6 days to go at the time of recording, going through Thursday, April 26th. I really hope that we can bring a review or preview of this game to you, like right at the end of the campaign. That's a shame, isn't it? But I know the Leafs did get this. It's got a lot of amazing minis. Plus the gameplay just looks amazing. Definitely check this one out. It is backed by the Leafs. So if you want to back a game that we backed, definitely check this one out. And then don't forget about Mobster Metropolis. Create your syndicate, rise to power for 13 and up. We sat down with Carl and interviewed them. Invest in turfs and recruits, or conduct drive-bys in order to become the most powerful gangster boss in this 2 to 4 player strategy game. They're overfunded and they've got 6 days to go as well, ending on Thursday, April 26th, the same day our contest rolls out. And then maybe you listened, maybe you didn't. Well, maybe you watched, and maybe you didn't. But if you were around my age, in your late 30s or early 30s or somewhere, you may have heard of Terminator. Either way, you definitely want to check out Terminator Genisys, Rise of the Resistance. This is a cooperative 1 to 4 player action-adventure game featuring an original campaign set in the 2029 Terminator universe. They are getting close to their goal. They've got, about 17,000, somewhere around there, and 10 days to go. They end on Monday, the 30th of April. Definitely check this one out. Arnold is back. Yes, sirree, Bob. Arnold's back. And then don't forget about the Gate of R''Lyeh. In his house, dead Cthulhu waits, dreaming. You only have hours to secure the gate, but some among you have other plans. Definitely check this one out. They funded quite a while ago, 25 hours into the campaign, and they've got 9 days to go, ending on Sunday, the 29th of April. I love the art of this game. Definitely check this out. If you're a fan of Cthulhu and fun games, check this one out. We'll leave the link in the show notes. And then You'll hear an interview next week, but in the meantime, let's go ahead and show our friend Zach some love. Swerve, the connection strategy game. It's kind of like Chinese checkers, but completely different. It's got no luck. It's all strategy. Well, it's got a little luck, but it's like Chinese checkers, but there's cards, and you go ahead and you have to use strategy. You have to think 3 plays ahead. Bringing Friday night's game back. Bringing Friday night games back. Simple rules, complex strategy gameplay, zigzag your way to victory. The new classic family game. I'm really hoping Zach gets his one funded. I got an opportunity to sit down with him, and it sounds like a awesome game. I really want to try it out, and hopefully you do too. But definitely check it out on the Kickstarter. It's going for 23 days, ending the 13th of May. And then last but not least, we've got WUNDERKAMMER, the card game of curating curious collections. It's a tabletop game where players compete to acquire unusual artifacts and curate the most magnificent cabinet of curiosities. It's for 3 to 5 players, and they've got 54 hours to go. So maybe about 48 hours at the time you hear this, or somewhere around there, depending when you listen. They end on Sunday, the 22nd of April. So it's getting close to being done, and definitely come and check out the art on this post. This game, whatever you want to call it. Come check it out. It's definitely worth looking into. But it's time for you to get on with your lives, me to get on with my life. But in the meantime, remember, we dropped 2 other episodes today, so you can go back and listen if you didn't get to listen to them. And we've got, over 160 episodes for your convenient listening. Perhaps you caught them all and you want to go back and listen. Maybe my interviews never bore you. If that's the case, go back and listen. If you fall asleep during my interviews, you can listen to them while you fall asleep. That'd be great. But don't do it at the will. But you want to get exclusive content and find out about giveaways, then I suggest you make your way over to GameReliefGo.com. Kind of like Pokemon Go, but GameReliefGo.com. And subscribe to our mailing list, especially before the 26th of April when we roll out with our giveaway. But anyways, you go ahead and get on with your lives. We'll get on with ours. In the meantime, get geeky, stay geeky, and bring others into Geekfold. And we'll definitely catch y'all on the flip side. Game Relief out.
Gamer Leaf levels up. Tune in next week to see if Gamer Leaf's luck holds up.